Genesis chapter 8, verse 11 and 12. We're skipping verse 10. It's a fairly short verse. Noah waits 7 more days after receiving that dove back initially, and then he sends him back out again. So now let's pick up with what happens again with that dove in these 2 verses. Ke anestrepsin prosalton, he peristera, ta pros hesperon, ke echen philon, helias karphas into stomati autes, ke egno noe hati kekopaken, ta hudor apotes ges. And we'll do verse 12 here in a minute. So now we're going to figure out what happens to this dove once he was sent out for the second time. And we see that he anastrephes. This means to return, third singular aorist active indicative. What's interesting is that the Masoretic, as we have it, just has tabo, which means to come or to go. And so some scholars argue that perhaps the Hebrew that's in front of the translator maybe was a bit different than using this verb bo, which would lead to, maybe it's like shuv or something like that, which means to return. That would be a more normal translation pairing. So that's possible. Just thought I'd point that out. Either way, the Old Greek has he returned, prosalton, back to Noah. And here's our subject, the dove. And let's find out the time frame, ta pros hesperon. That's kind of a bit of a Hebraic idiom, if you will. It's basically towards evening or towards dusk, something like that. And then we have a verb here. This is from echo. This is going to be a third singular imperfect active indicative. It's quite interesting. Pivot to the imperfect there. Basically, the idea is that this dove, as he's flying, so to speak, he was carrying something like that. And once again, another interesting Hebrew issue, it's just hine, which typically means behold or look, something like that. So the translator here, if that's what he had in front of him, decided to change it to a verb, or perhaps there was a different word in the Hebrew source that he was using. Either way, what does he have with him? It's a philon, which means a leaf of a elias, which is an olive leaf. And then karphas here, something like a twig. And the Hebrew itself can be a little bit tricky to translate, and actually like the Vulgate is a little bit different. The basic idea is pretty clear. He's carrying with him like an olive branch of some sort or a twig. This Vulgate emphasizes that it's fresh and green. The Hebrew doesn't necessarily stress that. Actually, the Greek seems to suggest that it's like almost a dead twig that he picked up off the ground, something like that. So slightly different ways in which the interpretation is playing out. But either way, he's got a leaf of an olive that's a twig, and it's into stomati autes, in its mouth. And so because of that sign, if you will, now we pivot back to Noah. He knew. This is from gnosko, nice third singular aorist active indicative. You recall gnosko has a sort of a weird paradigm there, hence why you have this odd spelling. Subject here is Noah, and he knew that. So he's able to observe this situation, what he has in his mouth, and he's able to conclude what? What does he conclude? Well, that you have a verb here, kopaza, which we've seen a couple times before. Nice little third singular perfect now, active indicative. So we've had an aorist, an imperfect, and now a perfect. This means to cease. What's your subject? It's the water, so that he knew that the water has ceased or had ceased from the earth. In other words, that's his indication that it is starting to truly recede in a way that is enabling green vegetation to pop back up. Now let's look at verse 12. Ke epischon eti hemera septa heteros palen exapastelen ten peristeron ke u prosetheta to epistrepsi pros auton eti. A lot of kind of interesting syntax here, but the basic sense is pretty clear. So once the dove has come back to the ark with this twig in its mouth, Noah is the implied subject here. He ep-echos, and this is a nominative singular masculine, aorist active participle with a spelling change here. And ep-echo means something like to delay or to hold back, and so he is now holding back. He's going to wait for a certain period. There's your eti, sort of framing the time. Hemeros hepta heteros, so 7. That's this word here. And then heteros, other, if you will. It's sort of like he waits 7 more days, if you will. So he's going to pause before he takes the next step. And then pollen here is like, okay, once more, once again, he sends forth. This is from ex apostello, just third singular aorist active indicative. That means to send out or to send forth. And he sends out this dove once more. So he keeps him on the ark for 7 days, waits a bit, and then pollen, once again, he sends him out. Now we have a very important change. It's just marked by a chi, but we have the u here. And then this is a form of prostithemi, which usually means something like to add to, but in the Septuagint, when you have a prostithemi plus an infinitive, as we'll see, the idea is he once again did something or continued to do something. This is just a third singular aorist middle here, but it's buddied up with this infinitive, and it's the infinitive form of epistrepho now, which basically means the same thing as anastrepho that we've seen previously. It means to return, but notice you have the article, and then this is an aorist active infinitive. This is a combined kind of thing here. So he did not continue or did not additionally return pros alton eti, so back to Noah anymore, something like that. In other words, it's a bit weird syntax, but it's pretty faithful rendering of the Hebrew here. The bird did not continue to return to Noah anymore after he was sent out. In other words, he finds a home and life is good. So that's Genesis 8, 11, and 12. The waters have receded enough for our dove to find a home.